Good morning, beloved community. Let's take a few breaths together. Let's exhale first, let it out. Take a deep breath in. And let it go. Oh yeah, let's do that again. Breathe in. Really let it go. One more breath together. Breathe in. And let it go. So this month, our theme we are chewing on is Practice Makes Imperfect. Or as Lori called it last week, Perfectly Imperfect, which I think I actually like a little bit better. So I guess my question is for you, how's your oneness walk going? Is all the things in your life, all the things in our community, all the things in the world, are they all reminding you easily and effortlessly that it's all one thing? Yeah, me either. I try. I am continuously bringing myself back to prayer, to meditation, to the music, right? To the things that help me remember that there's a higher truth at work here, regardless of what we see. And I've been thinking of this idea of practice makes imperfect. And one of the thoughts that came to me this week as I was thinking about this, as I was thinking about all of our magnificent musicians, that how much practice it takes to learn the instrument, to do those scales on the keys, right? Lauren, I'm sure you've spent thousands of hours doing scales, right? And the practice of getting it absolutely right every single time, getting the muscle memory, learning the instrument, getting it into your body, right? To be in that absolute perfection of the practice so that then y'all can show up in places like this and do what you do, right? Where you open up, where spirit comes through, where it's no longer that perfect practice, but it's the imperfect, beautiful representation of that embodied perfection that then shows up as the magnificence that makes the art, right? Right? And it's the practice that then allows the something more to come through. But it's that rigid practice of doing those scales up and down, getting every single note right, that then allows for the skill of improvisation, right? And I was thinking about that as an analogy this week for our spiritual practice, that we go to meditation, we go to prayer, we recite our affirmations, we do our spiritual study, we be in dialogue with each other, we listen to inspiring talks. We're in the practice, reminding ourselves of divine truth, reminding ourselves of that which we want to be, what we want to see. The practice then prepares us for the improvisation or the art experiment that is life itself. Right? So that when we come up into those moments, the practice becomes a form that we allow ourselves to move through, but it informs us in a new way. Right? And there's this invitation here for us to every time, I said this last week, every time we move off the path of oneness, every time we forget, every time we fall into hatred, every time we see the separation, every time we buy into the fear, right, we're moving away from our path of oneness. The practice is then to turn our attention back to the truth. And that looks a whole lot like this. Right? But that's the practice itself. Right? If you look at how a tightrope walker does the tightrope walks, these people go across buildings and all that. Spiritual practice, the spiritual life, looking for oneness, it's a tightrope walk. Right? It's a very fine practice. But if you watch how they maintain that balance, they have that long pole that's doing this the whole time. Right? Being in balance, being in that perfection is not just being in the straight line, it's the continuous correction back to center. Right? So the practice allows us to be imperfect in that we are constantly realigning ourselves to the truth. And that imperfection is actually our beauty. It's our power. It's our magnificence, right? There's a Japanese art style called wabi-sabi. You know this? Right? Wabi-sabi is an art style in Japan that when something like a beautiful porcelain teacup breaks, you have this special gold glue, and you glue it back together very carefully. And that new broken thing that's been put back together with that golden glue is now considered more beautiful than the original art piece, right? Because there's this concept of I'm not going to say this correctly because I don't speak Japanese, of kintsugi, which is this idea of perfection in imperfection, right? And that when something breaks, we have this opportunity to look at it not as broken, not as something that needs to be thrown away, but something that we have to give this very special attention to and glue it back together with gold. There's a metaphor in there, right? Because we have experiences in our own lives, right, of loss or of disease or of pain or of these moments of trauma. There are things that happen to us in this life that make us feel broken, right? We might look out at the world, at our current circumstances, at our politics, at what's happening in our environment, at the wars that are happening around the world, and we feel like our oneness, we feel like our connection, we feel like it's something has been broken. And we can either look at all this broken stuff and say, well, it's broken. It's broken. Or we can look at that which has been broken, which feels broken, and say, okay, my job is to be the one who finds the golden glue to bring it all back together. And that golden glue is going to come through our spiritual practice. It's going to come from our prayer. It's going to come from our meditation. It's going to come from our connections with each other in those moments where we find the healing. When we're willing to look for the oneness in the separation, we become the golden glue, right? When this disease happens in our body, when we feel sick, when we feel broken, when we feel the dis-ease, and we look to the wholeness of our being, that's the golden glue, right? And so in Science of Mind, Religious Science, Centers for Spiritual Living, New Thought, this philosophy has so many names. In this philosophy that we teach here, right, we teach this idea that we look to the spiritual qualities. That whatever it is that appears to be off or not right or not working, there is a truth hidden underneath it. There is a divine reality hidden underneath it. There is a greater something more that's hidden underneath the experience. And when we're willing to look for it, we become the place where the healing starts to happen. Right? Because creation, reality, is a result of thought and attention. Everything that we are seeing in the world, all of the circumstances, good or bad, were a thought first. Those thoughts then became beliefs. Those beliefs become actions. Those actions become results. Those results become conditions. And then that conditions our perception and then maybe affects what we choose to look at, where our attention goes, and then the cycle repeats. Right? So the more we look at the problem, the more we look at the thing and buy into the story, whatever it is, our perception becomes a place where that thing is being created more. Right? If we see the hate and the fear in the world and we tell the story of hate and fear, what have we created but more hate and fear? Right? But if I see the separation and the pain and the suffering and the hate in the world and I look for love, what am I doing? I'm creating more love. I'm bringing more love into the world. Right? So when it lands in our bodies or it lands in our world, whatever the it is, we have to choose to tune our attention to a higher principle, to look for the golden glue that is available to us so that our consciousness can be the place where the broken pieces get put back together. And every one of us has an opportunity, probably every single day, to look for those places where we can be the golden glue, where our consciousness could mend something that seemed broken, where our words can bring a connection where there was previously separation, where our actions can cause healing where there was previously pain. If I consistently and constantly choose to look for a higher principle, tune my attention to love, tune my attention to oneness, tune my attention to wholeness, tune my attention to evolution, then as I look at what appears to be problem, dis-ease, separation, pain, my perception might open up to be able to see something else. And when I see the something else, then I feed it. I give it my energy, I give it my consciousness, I give it my love, and I allow it to grow. Because if everything was a thought first, and everything is created by consciousness, then all the war, all the disease, all the pain, all the environmental damage, all of that was created by thoughts, which means that's the very thing that can uncreate it or recreate it or bring about something new. But it has to start in our own consciousness. We can't wait for someone else to do it. We can't wait for it to look better before we start to tell a better story. We have to start telling the better story now. That way we start to live into it. We start to write the script. We start to prepare the story for the stage, which is the world. But it starts in us, in our practice, in our rehearsal, in the way that we bring it into our own mind and then bring it back out into the world. And I tell you, friends, there every single day when I turn on the TV or the phone screen or the computer, there's an opportunity for me to look for a higher principle. I tell you, I had at least one moment this week where I had to check my oneness. Because there's lots of opportunities to decide what we really believe. Because what we really believe is going to inform how we show up. It's going to inform the story we tell about what we see. And there is plenty of storytelling going on about what's not working. I want to be part of a collective of consciousness that's starting to spread the rumor that it's working out, that we're waking up, that all of this pain and all that's cracking open and all that appears to be broken is waking us up and asking us to be different, to be something else, to call the evolution from within us and to step out and become it into the world. What if everything that comes your way was sent to you by the one consciousness for you to do something with? Whatever comes your way is yours to do something with. But you got to start looking for the glue. Because there is a place of connection between every one of us. If I say that God is all there is, that the one mind, the one power, and the one presence is living and breathing in everyone on this planet, then that means everyone. And what does fierce oneness look like? When I see an other, whoever that might be, who makes me think, well, they can't be part of the one, there's an invitation for me to look to a higher principle. There's an invitation to me to look to a higher principle. Every single time I buy into the separation, every single time I buy into the story that there is us and them, I have an invitation to look to a higher principle. Which means that in the teeter-totter of life, we are rebalancing ourselves every moment, every day, all the time. Because I will not continue to perpetuate the fear and the hatred and the separation. Because if I do, all I'm going to get is more of that. And I'm pretty sure that love has a punch that can actually reach us. But we've got to be fierce about it. We've got to be fierce about our oneness, fierce about our belief that there is only one of us here, fierce about our truth that we are the earth life, that we are one human family, that there is no way to do anything to anyone else without that happening to us as well. We are all intricately and intimately and infinitely connected. And each one of us is beautifully broken and magnificently flawed. And that is what makes us powerful. Because it's those unique individual ways that Spirit is showing up as each one of us in this world that there is a new opportunity for life to bring something new forward. You know, and this idea of perfectly imperfect or practice makes imperfect or whatever this month's theme is, this imperfect theme, is to remind us that actually perfection's not the goal. Look to nature. Look to life itself. The beauty and magnificence is in the difference. It's in the flaws, right? If you were to take a picture of your face and just take one half of it and duplicate it the other way, you'd look so weird. Have you seen those, right? We look beautiful and unique and intricate because our faces are not symmetrical, right? Each one of us, we think we're aiming for perfection. What we are actually seeking to do is aim for imperfection, to be beautifully flawed, to be magnificently messy. Right? Because in that, we let the fullness of ourselves show up. All of us in this really in the world at this point, have been patterned by this idea of colonization that has told us that all things need to fit in squares and right angles and straight lines. None of that exists in nature. None of that exists in the universe. Those are false truths. Because the truth is our beauty is wiggly and it's wampus and it's all over the place. And when we strive to hit some form of perfection and just maintain it, that's not reality. Reality is the wandering path. It's the imperfection of our experience that hones us to be ever deeper and ever more aware of the truth of who we are. Because it's all of my little flaws and mess-ups that have taught me how magnificent I am. And it's probably true for you too. All those little moments where we mess up, all those little moments where we stumble, all those little moments where we struggle along the path, they make us who we are. And the world needs us to express our fullness, to live into our highest truths, and to show up with all that we have. Because it's when we withhold our love, when we withhold our gifts, when we withhold our song, we are withholding the healing that the world needs. And there is a gift within each one of us that the universe is seeking to gift to the world. And it's waiting to be expressed through each one of us. And I really believe that our pathway to a world that works for everyone is a world where each one of us opens to the truth and the magnificence of who we really are. And realize that it's our love, it's our consciousness, it's our gifts that each one of us have to give, which is that golden glue that's going to help put this broken world back together and make it more beautiful than it was originally. Right? This time of cracking open is a time of birthing something new. And it's coming through all of us, through each one of us. Every day is an invitation. And as it appears to me, there are going to be more and more invitations everywhere we look every day. The invitations are rising up for us to choose where we're going to place our attention, the world that we're going to build, and who we want to be. So in this coming week's e-news, there's going to be a little something you're going to see, and we'll give you more information about this next Sunday. But I'm going to be participating, and I'm going to invite you to participate in a 100-day election intention. So starting on July 28th through November 4th, there's going to be 100 days of prayer and affirmation. Myself and a number of ministers and thought leaders from around the New Thought movement are coming together, and we're going to be posting something every single day. You can sign up to get a text sent directly to your phone. There's going to be videos, there's going to be prayers, there's going to be music, there's going to be inspirational messages, there's going to be a weekly Zoom call you can tune into, because we must step into this place right here, right now, of choosing to tune our minds to a higher idea, to not get lost in the fear, not get lost in the stories, not get lost in all that's coming up, because if that's what we put our attention on, that's what we're going to get more of. So all that we see is an invitation, and then we have to ask ourselves, what are the higher truths? What are the greater principles? What is the more that's seeking to be expressed through this? And so we're seeking to call together as many people as we can to build a collective consciousness that's willing to look at what is and then raise our minds to a higher place and look through what is to a higher principle and to a higher truth, so that that which we are placing our attention on is that which must and will be. Perfect. Take a deep breath and let it go. And take another deep breath in and let it go. Take another deep breath. And let's anchor this in our practice. So breathing in, I remind each one of us that we are being breathed by something greater than ourselves. That what I know is that the universe, that life, consciousness is one thing, one infinite, seamless field of possibility. And what I know is that that field of infinite possibility and creativity is also expressing through each one of us. That these divine truths of love, of oneness, of possibility, of creativity, of evolutionary potential, that it is all at work in the world right now. So let's breathe a little deeper and realize that this walk of oneness is not easy, but it's simple. Every breath, every moment, every interaction is an opportunity to tune our minds back to a higher truth. So take another deep breath. And so let us just breathe into the knowing right here and right now that each one of us is here in this world with purpose, on purpose, for a purpose. That each one of us has the potential to be the golden glue that brings the broken pieces back together. That it is through the power of our attention, through the power of our choice, through the power of our awareness, that when we look to that which feels like dis-ease, when we look to that which feels broken, when we look to that which feels like pain, we look to a higher principle and we ask that deeper question, how is this God? How is this for the good? How is this calling evolution forward? And then in that question, our consciousness becomes the place of mending. Our consciousness becomes the place of healing. Our consciousness, individually, each one of us can become the place of revealing a higher truth into this world. And it happens through us because we choose to look for something more. So let us breathe and come back to center. And then breathe and come back to center. And realize that this is the path. That every time we forget, we remember to remember. That every time we step off the path, we take one more step towards it again. Every moment of every day is an opportunity for us to look for love, to look for oneness, to look for the activity of God in the world, and realize that if there's only one of us here, and that one is God, then everything that comes our way is for us. Let us take the invitation and rise up and become something new. Today is an opportunity. Every breath is an opportunity. Let us remember the truth of who we are, right here, right now. And so say with me, and so it is.